My name is Michael Echave. I'm an AEC Technical Specialist here at ATG USA. I'm also a Bluebeam certified instructor. So for the description today, it's time to take a deep dive into customizing the visual properties of your markups and the information associated with it. If not a lot of us knew about the markups list below, we'll show a little bit off. There is a video about the markups list at our YouTube channel, so you can go there and check that out and learn more about the markups list, but we will touch a little bit on it today. We're also going to learn about the subject and how useful the property allows to associate the information to that specific markup. We're also going to talk about the tool chest. Maybe some of us are using markups and remaking them every single time. Let's actually stop that method and actually reuse them every single time so we don't have to remake them and keep using that non-extra time for no reason. What is our learning objectives for today? We're going to demonstrate 3 ways to act markup tools and how to place images on drawings. We'll also customize the visual properties and change the subject line for single or multiple markups in the properties panel. And we'll also save a custom markup to the tools set as well. And maybe create a custom one because some want to create a specific one. We're also going to add some actions if we all didn't know what adding actions specific markup, because our markup host metadata as well. We'll also run through some of those and maybe legends. If we have some time, we'll use the legend feature as well. Some of us didn't know about that feature as we kind of go along with it. But again, at any time, feel free to shoot anything in the Q&A or in the Zoom webinar chat, and we kind of chat it out and see what issues you're currently having or something you would like to see happen within review as well. Specifically on markups, at the end, we'll talk about outside of markups, okay? So other questions from there as well. But let's hop into Bluebeam review because I do not believe in death by PowerPoint. So I'm not going to show you a bunch of slides on how you could change marks. Let's actually hop right into review and run through well. So I'm just going to go right into you. I already have a design set up. So I come from a structural design background. So I have a structural set here. I also have an architectural set if we want to kind of do some architectural sets or electrical plumbing design as well. We can run through some of those as we go along if need be. But first off and foremost, Bluebeam Review works as with profiles. So if we go through here to the top left, I'm currently working on the profile of Review Advanced. So if you are following along with me as I'm demonstrating some of these items, be aware that this interface is completely different because I'm in Review Advanced. Usually interface when you're automatically downloading it comes with Review. So this is usual profile you'll have. I'm in Review Advanced, so profiles control the way the UI looks in terms of your bar menu and also your panel access items, also your custom tools and custom columns. So be aware that you can save these profiles just by going manage. I wouldn't overwrite one from out of the box. I would just say manage and create a new one and add a new profile from there. But anyways, aside from the profiles, this is the profile I'm in, so we can kind of track and follow along with me. There are 3 ways to access different markups. If we wanted to go through, go up to here, we can go to the markup area, and we can select one of the markups that we're going to be using. Or we can go through our toolbar menu. If again, you're in Review Advanced, if you're not, you can always right click in the open area of the bar and go through and say what type of markups you want to look for, such as text, sketch, shapes, allowing you to get access to those quickly and readily. And again, with any of these toolbar menus, you can actually drag them around. They have to stay within the UI though, so you cannot drag them to a second screen, but that is different specifically for the panel access bars. So these panel accesses, these can actually be moved outside for the specific panel like Studio. You can have it on a second screen if you wanted to. Again, that's just more of how you're changing the environment you're utilizing Review for. Because sometimes we don't need all of these items that are actually being shown up here, right? But let's get into the markups. So first markup I'm going to be utilizing is align, right? This is very familiar to everything that we're utilizing, right? We can click it. A nice little hint also for orthogonal positioning, you hold shift and then it'll go in your 90 straight as we go along, seeing our markups here. Now the next when we're placing and showing our markups again was either going up to tools or grabbing it from our toolbar menu. You can also use keys, which we'll go over in a second. But I place this line here. Then there's this thing that populates called the properties bar, but I like to say dynamic properties bar because it's dynamic and changes to whatever command you're in. So if I unselect it, I'm in the PDF. So that means there's specific options for this PDF. Or I can reselect my markup here, and then it actually shows the markups capabilities to changing how it looks, right? So we can go into here and I can change the different line style if I wanted to. Maybe it's a gas. Maybe this is a gas line that needs to be represented here. Maybe I wanted to change the actual weight itself. I can go in and change this to maybe 3. And maybe we want to customize the start and end. I'll have to extend this more because again, change weight. There we go. Maybe I want an arrow on one end, right? An arrow on the other, and they need to be filled with. There we go. I'm starting to customize the way that looks. And then let's go into another one, right? Maybe we want to place an arc. We can always go through and place an arc here. Again, having that arc being shown, I can move it around if I wanted to, extend it back over to maybe an ellipse style here. We also have the ability to place a polyline, so we can go through and place a polyline if we wanted to. Now, how many of us are currently going through, even in this software, going through and placing a text somewhere, and we're going to say column number 2 or something. That's right, number 2 here. And then from here, we're going to say, okay, now we need to point it to something. So then we go and grab the arrow feature here and point it to the column. And maybe we're just stuck in this habit of this is how it's open, and this is how we think it should be, and this is how we should create it, right? Well, actually, there's actually a better method than doing this. We can actually go through and say, I want to create a callout. So there's this feature called the callout or Q. So if I just press Q, which is the other way to access our markups, which is again a hotkey. I can't learn too many hotkeys because I'm an instructor, and you'll be wondering what is he doing? How do you get that markup? But here's the callout feature. So I can go down into here and I can make a callout again. And let me say move 10 feet here. And there's the arrow, and who likes this kind of open head arrow here? I don't. So you know what? I'm going to go in and change this to a filled one, and I'm going to actually add the fill color to green because we're going to start changing everything in this item here to green. And my lines are green as well. So now this markup is green, right? And hey, you know what? I need to have another arrow because this needs to move 10 feet as well. So you can actually right click on an existing markup, and with Review 2020, so if you were all working in an older version, just be aware that you can't do this. You can actually move it to a different area over on the right-hand side now, versus it just being stuck because every version below 20 is actually going to only allow you to keep it in the same area of where the vicinity of the original one was. Now you actually have the ability to go over and place it here. And probably auto size text box is a good feature as well, because see how my text box is extended. So instead of having me to drag this over, you can always go up to here to auto size text box, or the hotkey of Alt Z will auto size your text box here as well, as you're placing the specific type of markup that you want to place. You also have the ability to place a cloud plus, which is a callout around a cloud. So maybe I want to go over to here. Maybe I want to go over to here and place this around. Oops, if I would have dragged it. So you have 2 ways to place your callouts for a revision cloud. I can left click individually, just like a polyline, and kind of customize the way I want it to look this way and press enter or double click to finish it. And then from here, I can say, move over 11 feet, who knows, right? Alt Z, so it automatically replaces it there. Or you can do what I usually like to do, which is just a rectangle or a square if you're really good at gauging the size of it. Left click and hold and drag to what size you want it to be. That is the other method as well. Let me go into here and customize this a little bit. I know it's supposed to be moving something, but let's go in and place a hatch pattern. Maybe you want to place a little hatch pattern into here. I'm changing the colors a little bit just so we can customize the way we want it to look, right? And the meaning maybe we want it to look, or company wide, right? Or discipline specific. Maybe everything that is being changed or called out is specific to an engineer markup. So all of my green items are going to be my engineer markups. A couple questions have come through. Sorry, 1 second. Let me read them. One was, what are some best practices for creating markups for other users to utilize? Can we incorporate layers, pre-populated subjects? So layers, are you talking about colors associated to them, Dan? Next one is, sorry, I lost the beginning of the webinar. What's the software being utilized called? So this software is called this. Oops, sorry, that's my watch. You gotta love the new Apple Watches. This is Bluebeam Review. So we are covering how to utilize Bluebeam Review and specific markups for them. And again, back to Dan, can we incorporate layers? Are you saying layers in terms of colors or layers on how our markups are placed on the PDF? Feel free to shoot that into the webinar chat and we'll kind of go through there. Okay, so you can place specific markups onto layers. So if you right click and you say add layer, you just have to create the specific layer you want it to be added onto. This is great for visual items, right? So say maybe we want to remove some or have some somewhere. You can do that by creating layers. And again, your layers feature will show up in your properties list here, and you can control how things are being represented, right? Maybe I don't want to see these specific markups that I've added to the specific layer. You can do that as well, but that's document specific, again, not already automatically added to one unless the layer has been created. Okay, so back to what we were covering a little bit ago, I've customized some of my markups to look the way I want them to look, right? So usually some of us may not know the feature of the tool chest, right? So we just recreate these every single time, which is very time consuming, and there's no need to actually do this. There's this great feature in Bluebeam Review called the tool chest. So over here on the left-hand side, it's called the tool chest. It's a panel. So when I select the panel, it's actually going to fly out here. I have some already pre-loaded tool sets. And the great thing about these is you can actually export them out as well. And how do tool sets actually work? It's like a toolbox, right? So your tool chest is your toolbox. Hopefully everyone knows what a Allen key set is, right? I like to use that as an analogy. We have our Allen key set that we put in our toolbox. Hopefully we put it back in our toolbox. And then when we're ready to use it, we grab our Allen key set, and then we pull out the specific Allen key needed for the job, right? So same thing like my tool chest here. I have tool sets that live in my tool chest. And when I'm ready to use a specific tool set, I can open it up and then grab the specific markup that I want to utilize, right? Just like an Allen key set. Except for here, we don't have to worry about putting it back in our toolbox because it always lives in our tool chest. So just be aware of that. The only thing that you have to worry about is if it's showing up in the active profile that you are utilizing it in. But as I go over to, excuse me, as I go over to here, I have my tool chest. You have some items. You'll always see the recent tools and my tools. So recent tools are actually frequently used tools that you've used in terms of your design in your document, right? So as I go through my document, I'm starting to make markups. I'll see the recent tools that I've recently utilized on that specific document set. Now, the bad thing about recent tools, or not bad thing, the thing you should know, I guess I would say, is that when I close out review, all of these recent tools are going to be gone. So just be aware of that. These will be removed and you can't use them again. So what you need to do is either add them to a tool set or drag them up to my tools. And before we get those items, let's talk a little bit about these ones here in my recent tools. So there's two different view modes for these ones. There's properties or drawing mode. So right now, this is the specific drawing mode, which we can't really see it. Maybe for those of us like me that I'm blind, I need to drag these out so I can actually see these visually better, right, in representation. I'm going to change the maximum count to 30 here, and I can see these. They look exactly like the ones that I've already placed. So if I click it, it's going to copy it over. Now, this is what we call drawing mode because it's copying the exact same drawing, quote unquote, markup over. Now, what I can do is I can double click on it and it's going to change it to properties mode, which shows the revision cloud with the actual comment on it as well. So now this is going to copy the exact same properties of that markup, right? So properties being the subject, which is also important. So if I go back and click the specific markup, we don't really have a subject assigned to it, which is very important when we come down to our markups list because it's starting to allocate the data. So it's already done this. It said the Cloud Plus, which is the generic out of the box subject. So what you should do, we're going to say this is specific comment to the engineer, right? Or the designer of the engineer, however you want to place it. So I can go over here and I can just say it's going to be, instead of the engineer, we'll just say struck or structural, okay? So now the subject is changed to struck, and now I'm going to add it to a My Tools. So up here in My Tools, so I can reuse it all of the time. So I'm going to add it to My Tools. And now whenever I start to make this subject will always stay, so I can know who or when that person made the markups as well under their specific subject. So it no longer lives under this Cloud Plus here. It's now changed to the struck one, and there's been 3 made to them as well. So this allows me to itemize data specifically for which ones are the subjects under. So this is great for either discipline specific. So maybe we have some discipline specific markups that we're going to be making, such as architectural, MEP, or just M and then E and then P, and then also structural design, right? Or maybe construction, because we're going to be doing a punch walkthrough, which I have some punch key walkthroughs, which we'll be showing off in a little bit as well. Let me go over to my questions over here and see what some people have asked. How do you create a text with a spline? The question being the spline, are you trying to actually have some indication when we're going to use the polyline or the arc? Is that what you're saying? So you want to have a line with a text over it. Do you want the line to be dynamic for the spline? That's kind of the other questions I'd have for you as well, Juan, as we kind of run through these items as well. Let me go back over to here. I'm going to add this one too to My Tools, but I'm going to change the subject. So again, you can change it up here from the dynamic properties bar, or you can go over to the gear on the right-hand side. As I click this, I can go down and decide to change the specific subject for it. It's going to be up here at the top. Again, when you're using one from out of the box, it's going to give it what type of markup it is. So I can go over here and say struck for it. There we go. And I can go there and now add it to my tool chest here of My Tools and reuse it later on. So the great thing again about My Tools here is also you had the hotkeys here. So these aren't just numbering, hey, 1 through 10 or 1 through 11. If you actually press 11, excuse me, depending on what mode. So maybe I want to change this to properties mode. And then I go through and press 11 here. Now I can again make the new call out specifically to what I want. Boom, here to here. Move 5 inches maybe. Alt Z again for the auto size of the text box. And now I don't have to reuse these again, right? I don't have to go through, make a call out, change the colors to match what I wanted it to be. It's already going to be that exact same color. Again, this is using my tool chest here for the tool sets that we're going to reuse the markups later on. Does anyone have any questions so far? Feel free to ask any questions that you have. Alrighty. We'll move forward. So there's some additional tool sets that I have over here on my left-hand side, such as maybe doing a punch walkthrough for our different items, such as a paint touch-up, right? Maybe some things need to be touched up as they're walking through for a punch walkthrough. And this is great because we can see what it may be, but we don't understand it, right? So maybe I'm new to the firm and I have never done a punch key walkthrough for paint touch-ups, right? And I have no idea what these abbreviations are. There's a great thing over here on the gear. If I select it, I can change it from symbol mode to detail. Now I have a better understanding of what these are. So the subject is painting. Okay, so I know I'm doing a paint walkthrough. And what are the comments associated to it? So TU, what does that even mean? When I look over here, it's touch up. So now when I go through and place these, I now know it's going to be under painting in my markups because that's the subject. And there's going to be a comment associated to it saying paint touch up. Great. So again, you can change the way these tool sets look visually by doing the detail or symbol mode. Now, depending on what information you have applied to them, it may not be the best. such as now I know these are the structural subject items, and maybe they should fall under a structural tool set. So let's actually go and do that. So let me go to my tool chest over here. We're going to go to manage tool sets over here, and I'm going to add a new tool set specifically for the structural designer. And great, we have engineer here, so maybe I should just add them to the existing one. Okay, so let's actually do that. So I need to show that one just by clicking on it here. Now I have an engineer review, and you know what? Those are blue, which is fine. We're going to have some blue and green. So you can simply add them to an already existing tool set just by dragging and dropping it. So I can left click and hold and drag and drop it into this tool set. Left click and hold and drag and drop it into this tool set. And now I could go through and maybe delete these out of my tools here because I had them already here in my specific engineer review. Now I have the ability to reuse these later on under the specific engineer review. Now, what if I've made some markups or some punch walkthroughs? Let's actually go through and do some punch walkthroughs. Boom. Place a little bit of these throughout my drawing set here. And I want to create a legend for them so everyone else also understands these when they're looking at the document set, right? You can actually do that by selecting the gear here, saying create legend. So I'm actually going to go over and create a legend specifically for these tool sets here. And I'm going to place them maybe up here at the top left. And now I have my legend specifically shown for these ones. And these will actually gain in value because I've added them from the set. As I start to place some more of these, we'll see it starts to increment in value as I'm allocating those as well. Now, there is a great feature. Maybe you want one specifically from things you've already placed. You can do that as well. So I can open up my markups list here and maybe go to my struct ones that I've created. And I can select and hold shift because I want all of these to be added to a new legend. So I can either right click and say legend and add it to the punch key paint one. So then there's more additional ones onto that one. Or I can create a new legend here and place it maybe over here to the right. And I can see the specific type of markups that have been placed. I can always select this one here and go to a different title and say maybe my structural markups. Boom. Maybe I want to change the font size if I wanted to maybe 14, make it in bold as well. There we go. And then I have my columns. And let me change this to 14 as well and in bold so we can see the differences between them. And maybe I want to edit the columns that are going to be showing some of the data for it, right? So I can go and change the data that's been associated to it. Instead of unit, I don't want unit. I want maybe comments because there's some comments that have been associated to them. And there we go. There's my legend that I've created. And maybe I want to do some cell, different margins for them, right? As we go through, and I want to place some fonts for all the cells specifically underneath those as well. And we can do that as well as we have for them. And again, back over to here, you can change the subject for it because maybe you want to have it down here in the markups list, or you want to reuse this. Maybe you want to reuse this specific of legend. You can always add the legend also to your tool sets as well. So you can go here and say, I want to add this to a specific tool set, such as my tools, so that whenever I make these same type of markups, it create the legend specific to them and itemize data for it as well. So those are our legends. We've talked a little bit about how to access our markups, how to customize them. Now let's talk about adding some actions to them as well, right? So we edited our markups specifically from the dynamic area up here. Again, you can always do it also from the panel of the properties panel, allowing you to gain access to changing some of the items as well. So whichever one you prefer. But now let's maybe add an action to them so they do something. So if I go over here and select this move item here, and maybe I right click on it, and from here you have this thing called edit action. So some of us may have used the hyperlink feature. This is the same type of thing, except for it is actually going to be a little thunderbolt on the side of it. Unless you flatten it, then it's going to be the actual markup that you can click and it does something. But maybe I want it to go somewhere, right? So I'm going to go www.bluebeam.com because maybe we're actually making some type of markup that reference is some kind of manufacturing site, right? So I'm just going to do Bluebeam review for currently. And now this Thunderbolt. And if we all know, Bluebeam also is a search engine. So when I'm in here, it's actually going to search as well for it. Or if you don't, if you're sending it to an outside source client that's not working on review, it'll open up their default Internet Explorer. Then again, if I wanted to go through and flatten it, it'll be now clickable itself. So as I click it, it'll now be the new hyperlink through there. So again, that's depending on if you're going to flatten it or unflatten it, on how you're going to have your actual document set. Anyone have any questions so far? Oops. I know we ran through a little quick. If you want me to retouch on something, you totally can. Alrighty. So now maybe I want to go through and actually count my columns that I've made, right? Or maybe I'm counting the columns because they're going to have base plates associated to them or something like that. And I want to kind of get an itemized count for them, or visual. It's up to you. We're going to go over count or sequence. And I need to create a custom markup for it, right? So what we can do is we can go down into here and I can create a text box and maybe say, actually, you know what? I don't want a text box. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to make a rectangle here and I'm going to fill it with something that's going to be a hatch of dots here so that I know, okay, this is where my columns are. And every time I place one of these, I'm going to get a them, right? So you can customize this again the way you want it to look. You can also go through and change it. It can be whatever you wanted it to be, but I've had it here. And now I'm going to change the subject for it as well. And I'm going to put column, or subject is still going to be structural, I guess we could say. Let's change the comment later on. That's going to be specific, because itemize it under structural, right? So when I go to my subjects here, I'll see it specifically for them. So maybe I want to only see the subject of this. I can always go here and filter out. Maybe I only want to see structural. Great. So now when I start creating this as a count, we'll have them there. So right now I'm going to add it to my tool set of the engineer review here. And it's been added. And you know what? I want to create it as a count. So this is where I can create it as a count. There is no sequence value for it because it's not having anything alphabetical or numerical, if I could speak. So I'm going to hit create count here. And now we see the count symbol has been created. It creates a copy of it, so you still have the ability to manipulate the original one, which is great. So now when I go into here and I can actually start placing these everywhere in my document set. But before I do that, because it's under the specific for it, I need to actually change my set because as you can see, it's grayed out. So let me go over to here and change the properties of this markup here. Because when I changed it to a count, it actually gave it that. So structural. And let me just say all of these are columns, or maybe you have a specific size of those specific types of columns. So let me just give them a size then. I'll give them a W8 by 10 maybe. Who knows, right? Actually, I should know if I went to the size set here. But anyways, we'll go here and click. So now as I start placing these, right, I'm going to get a count for all of them wherever I'm placing them. And they're going to stay not grayed out because, again, I have them filtered out to do that specific task, right? So when I go back down to here, I will see them here. And now I have structural count, great. So that's under the subject here. And then I need to also give it the label because I made it a count and I want to know what they are, right? And maybe I don't need the comments for these specific ones either. So I can go down to here, go to comments. I don't need the date it was created or the page label or status or layers here. So layers, space, and there we go. So now we have some information associated. There's a count for the structural subject, which is great. And what else do I have? Okay, it's a W8 by 10. And how many of those do I have? So I should probably put the count here. And let me put count, boom. I have 6 of them. So that's another way, again, creating a count. Maybe we want more of a visual increment of them. The only issue with that is it doesn't put them all under one. It'll give an itemized instance for every single one placed, which you can do as well. So maybe I want to create a new one for this columns and I want to visually see how many there are as I'm placing the counts on the page. So I can go into here and I can say, we'll just put 1. I'm going to do Alt Z. And you can add specifically maybe a rectangle around it or whatever you want to place. Maybe we'll do an ellipse this time, right? And we'll group them together. Great. So I'm going to grab this one and grab this one. So I'm holding shift as I'm grabbing them. So selecting one, holding shift and selecting the other, which allows me to grab both, right clicking. And then from here, I'm going to group them, right? So the order of selecting them does matter when you go in and changing the labels in all those items as well, because it will change the actual information of what it's being shown here. So if you don't want to change this, you're going to grab this one first, then this one second. If you do want to change this by editing it later on over here, you're going to grab the item it is, like an ellipse or a rectangle, and then grab the number integer. So again, order does matter. Right clicking, then it's going to say group here, or Control G for all of us that love hotkeys. And you'll see it in my recent tools now. So I can select it and maybe I want to change the properties. But before I do that, let's actually move it to where we want it to go. So I'm going to move it to the engineer over here and I'm going to right click and say sequence. And I'm going to define the sequence here. So now I can go through and say, what sequence do I want to provide it with, numerical or alphabetical? I'm going to say numerical here. And then you have some additional options such as prefix or suffix. What increment value is it going to start at? And then go at, is it going to go by 1 integer or maybe every 2? And then you have reset sequence per document or per page. Completely up to you as well for that. And then renumber when markups are deleted if you want to have that as well. So I'm going to hit OK. So now as you can see here, it didn't create a copy of it. It's actually the same one. And you have a little play button, it looks like, right? So now let me go through and select it. I'm going to change the properties of it because it's specific to that one. Oops, come on, select it. Let me go to properties here. Now what subject do I want to change it to? It's going to be under structural. And again, the comments, depending on what you're going to be placing, right? But again, visual, so it's under structural here. And as I'm placing it, you are not showing up. Did I spell it wrong? Structural. It should be good. Maybe it's because it's every instance here. Let's see. Yeah, is every instance one specifically for it. But as we go through, I'm placing it, and it's more the visual aesthetically pleasing, right? So this is great if you're one of those people who likes to have a visual reference as you're placing them on your document set. But if you want to have more data and itemized count for them, the best way to do that is an actual count item. And then you can create maybe a custom column because you want to get an estimate of cost for them, right? So you can create a custom column that has some of that data as well. Again, reference my markups list video. It goes over more in depth the markups list. So I recommend you looking at that video for more of those questions as well. Yeah, so that was a great question, Zach. So I took the time to make these custom markups. And you know what? I want everyone in my company to also have access to them, right? I've taken the time, I had the time, or they deemed me the one that needed to go and do it. So any of these tool sets that you have created, you can actually go over here and select the gear symbol for it. And you have this thing called export. So you can go through and you must save it. Okay, so I needed to save it because I added some to it. So let me go through and select something that I hadn't made any changes to, such as this punch key one. But over here, you can go through and save it. So you can save it wherever you want to save it. You can email it out. It saves it as a .btx file. So if you want to write that down when you're working with colleagues and they took the time to make those markups, you can say, hey, can I get the .btx file from you, which is actually the tool set. And then if you send it to them, they just have to go over here to this top area. Sorry, I clicked through without even explaining it. I apologize. The top menu from the tool chest, go to the manage tool sets. And then from here, you're going to go to import, right? And wherever your colleague sent it and wherever you decided to save it, hopefully you remember where you saved it. You're going to go and grab it and open it up. And then you'll have it in your tool sets. Now, there is one thing though. So this profiles things is an issue. Are you going to see it in all profiles or only specific profiles that you have open, right? So, the specific profile you're in. So be aware of that. You can always modify it by selecting it and saying modify and show in all profiles. Because what happens is if I change from here, see how I have access to all of these? If I go to my different profile, review, that's going to change. So I go back up here to my tool sets. It has different ones specific to this area that's been created. So again, your profiles are the ones that are controlling the way your tool chest looks for your tool sets. Alrighty, so let's hop back into my PowerPoint then. So thank you all for coming out. Oh, there was one question. Yes, so let me go back into review. Not everything gets deleted. Nope, just my recent tools. So see my recent tools here. If I close out a review, I didn't save my document set. Great, let me, do I have to exit out of my PowerPoint here? I think I do. Or I can just open up a set and it's going to open up a review. 1 second. So see how my recent tools has been cleared now? You still have your tool sets, such as my tools or these ones that you've saved, right? But recent tools will go away. So all of your recent tools are gone. Now, if the markups were made on a document, you can always go back and again select them. So maybe they already existed onto here, right? So maybe this one was already on here and you open that document set. You can always select it, right click on it and add it to a tool chest. So you can pick specific ones that you want to have added to it as well. Yep, you're welcome. Alrighty, thank you all for coming out. This webinar is now complete. Thank you for your time.